Hey there, football family. How's everything going? This is Foot speaking, and you're tuned in to the channel most in love with the beautiful game, Food Vibes. And look, if I told you that the impossible just happened, would you believe me? Well then, hold on tight, because what went down yesterday at the Club World Cup was simply unbelievable. Manchester City, yes, the mighty side led by Pep Guardiola, were knocked out in the round of 16, and not just by anyone, but by Al-Hilal from Saudi Arabia in a crazy extra-time match that ended 4-3. That's right, you heard it correctly. The team that had been steamrolling everyone that demolished Juventus in the previous round were eliminated in front of the world's stunned eyes. And what caught most people's attention wasn't even the scoreline. It was the chain reaction it caused in the European media, especially in Spain, where the newspaper Marca didn't hold back in its criticism of Guardiola. Some Spaniards even went as far as to say that this could be the darkest season of his entire career at City. Heavy stuff, right? But hold on, because this is only the beginning. In this video, we're going to break down everything that happened in that unforgettable match, analyze Guardiola's reactions, understand how Al-Hilal made history, and reflect on what this means for the future of the citizens. So go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, activate the bell icon, and let's dive into this match that absolutely no one expected to end the way it did. To understand the magnitude of what happened, we need to start at the very beginning. Manchester City weren't just favorites. They were the team to beat. They had just put 5 past Juventus, were flying physically, and looked primed to add yet another trophy to their collection. On the other side, there was Al-Hilal, the Saudi club led by none other than Simone Inzaghi, the same man who lifted the Champions League trophy with Inter Milan. And here's the detail. Today, he's the highest-paid manager in the world. That's right, earning more than Guardiola, Ancelotti, or any other big name in European football. The match began just as many expected. Total English dominance. Just 9 minutes in, Bernardo Silva opened the scoring after a scrappy play that left Al-Hilal's players furious. They appealed for a handball by Ainuri, but referee Jesus Valenzuela allowed the goal to stand. From that point on, it looked like City would cruise to victory. But as you already know, that's not how it played out. The real standout of the first half wasn't City's relentless attack. It was the brick wall called Bono. The Moroccan goalkeeper had an absolutely sensational performance. He made at least 6 saves in the first half alone, 3 of them outright spectacular. A driven shot from Savinho, a cheeky chip from Gundogan, a rocket from outside the box by Bernardo Silva, and he saved them all. If it weren't for Bono, the match could have ended by halftime. But what followed was nothing short of a cinematic turnaround. The second half began, and just 41 seconds in, the unexpected happened. Marcos Leonardo, yes, the Brazilian who used to play for Santos, popped up in the 6-yard box to equalize. The cross came in from the right. Ederson missed it, Ruben Dias fumbled, and the young striker simply tapped it home. That was the start of the avalanche. 5 minutes later came a stunner that will be remembered for years. Cancelo, now wearing Al-Hilal's shirt, played a magical outside foot pass to Malcolm, who surged forward from beyond the halfway line, dribbled past defenders with ease, and slotted it past Ederson. 2-1. The comeback was complete, and the stadium in Orlando went wild. A desperate Guardiola responded with 3 substitutions at once. Off came Gundogan, Gvardiol, and Mateus Nunes. On came Ake, Alvarez, and Rodri. And to be fair, it worked. Just minutes later, Haaland did what he always does, show up at the right place, at the right time. After a corner from Bernardo Silva, the ball bounced off Ruben Dias and fell kindly for the Norwegian, who tucked it in. 2-2, and all to play for again. But the drama wasn't over yet. Malcolm was brought down in the box by Ruben Dias, and the referee pointed to the spot. But VAR intervened and spotted a marginal offside earlier in the move. City had a narrow escape, and just when it looked like penalties were inevitable, there was more drama to come. With only seconds left in normal time, Doku was clearly pulled back as he made a run down the left. It was a blatant foul, but the referee waved play on and blew the final whistle. Guardiola went ballistic. He ran onto the pitch, shouting at the referee in Spanish, Estás de broma? Which translates to, "Are you kidding me?" The scene went viral on social media and was splashed across the front pages of Spanish newspapers. Marca headlined the outburst in bold letters, calling the match a sky blue nightmare. But if you think extra time calmed things down, get ready. Al-Hilal came back firing, and just 8 minutes into the first period of extra time, Renan Lodi made a run down the left, won a corner, and Ruben Neves delivered a perfect cross. Koulibaly rose like a rocket and headed it into the net. 3-2. Once again, Guardiola responded boldly. He took off Haaland and brought on Foden. The move was questioned, but within minutes, Foden received a genius through ball from Shirk and calmly slotted it home. 3-all. And then came the final blow. In the second half of extra time, Lodi made another blazing run down the wing and sent in a cross. Milinkovic-Savic headed powerfully at goal. Ederson made his first save of the night, but the rebound fell straight to Marcos Leonardo, who simply slotted it in. 4-3, full time. If you'd like me to continue the analysis or help with a part 2 of the script, just let me know. The final whistle blew in Orlando, but the noise echoed across the entire globe. The elimination of Manchester City, one of the most feared teams in the world today, wasn't treated as a mere stumble. It was received as a seismic shock to the international football scene, and as expected, the first to react furiously were the Spanish media outlets. Marca, Spain's leading sports newspaper, showed no mercy. They described what happened as a batacazo mundial, a Spanish phrase roughly meaning a spectacular fall, a sporting scandal. In their words, not even the Club World Cup, which was theoretically supposed to be a consolation after an underwhelming season, could save the image of a Manchester City suffering an emotional collapse. And the main target of their criticism? Pep Guardiola, the very man who reinvented the game with his tiki-taka at Barcelona, who dominated the Bundesliga with Bayern, who transformed City into an almost invincible machine in the Premier League. Now he was portrayed as a man on the brink of exhaustion, without answers, without spark. According to the paper, this could be the darkest chapter of his managerial career. A heavy claim, but one that reveals just how deeply this downfall has affected the Catalan manager's image. But the post-match wasn't just about criticism. Marca also made a point of praising Simone Inzaghi. The Italian, who had already made his mark with Inter Milan, now leads a billion-dollar project in Saudi Arabia, and with full backing, he is currently the highest-paid manager on the planet, surpassing Guardiola, Klopp, and Ancelotti. And that's no coincidence. Saudi clubs are buying more than just players. They're importing tactical ideas, European infrastructure, and a long-term vision. Al-Hilal's victory over Manchester City isn't an anomaly. It's a warning. They no longer want to be side characters. They want center stage. The newspaper also highlighted another name that shone brightly: Bono. The Moroccan goalkeeper, remembered by many from his Sevilla days, re-emerged with a spectacular performance. His saves in the first half were the wall that held back the English onslaught. They allowed Al-Hilal to breathe, to regroup, and ultimately to strike. According to the Spanish press, he claimed his place among the world's best. And after that performance in Orlando, it's hard to argue. Now, stepping away from the media analysis and turning our eyes to what lies ahead, City's situation is complicated. The pressure on Guardiola is reaching unprecedented levels. He is a man used to winning, collecting trophies and applause, but now he faces something rare: doubt. The playing style that once captivated the world is now seen by some as predictable. Substitutions that once seemed genius are now viewed as signs of panic. The image of the manager who used to control every detail of a match has been replaced with scenes of him losing composure, yelling at the referee, overwhelmed by the urgency of a team that no longer delivers like before. And Manchester City? They must also reflect. This star-studded squad, with talent in every position, has been enough in England. But on the global stage, when faced with opponents who bring intensity, courage, and planning, they have fallen short. The defeat to Al-Hilal is yet another sign that modern football respects neither reputation nor budget. On the other side, we have Marcos Leonardo, a young man who left Brazil surrounded by doubts and criticism. Many said he was just a promising talent, nothing more. But last night he wrote his name into history. 2 goals, the first and the last. The unlikely hero, a symbol of a new kind of Brazilian player who doesn't wait to shine in Europe. He goes where the project is serious, where the game is played with purpose. And Saudi Arabia is offering just that. And if you think the madness ends here, brace yourself for what's coming. Because now, in the quarterfinals, we'll see a clash no one imagined. Al-Hilal versus Fluminense. Yes, the Rio club stunned everyone by eliminating Inter Milan 2-0 in a confident, intense, and spirited performance. The match will take place this Friday, 4 July, at 4 p.m. Brasilia time, once again at Camping World Stadium in Orlando. On one side, Marcos Leonardo, Malcolm, Renan Lodi, Bono and company. On the other, Fernando Diniz's squad with Cano, Andre, Ganso, and that Brazilian flair. Football played with soul. And once again, there's no clear favorite. Because if there's one lesson this Club World Cup has taught us, it's that shirts don't win games, nor budgets, nor history. What wins is who's most prepared on the day, who hungers more, who has more focus and the courage to make history. This clash between Brazilians and Saudis is more than just a match. It symbolizes a new era in global football, a moment where the power axis begins to shift, where Middle Eastern clubs make it clear they want a permanent seat at the big table, and where South American teams say, we're still here and we can still compete. And for the fans, of course, it's all gain. Because we're witnessing intense matches, thrilling battles, and surprises that warm the hearts of true football lovers. The Al-Hilal versus City match was a reminder that the impossible is still possible, that football is that crazy sport where even with all the stats, everything can change in a minute, or, as we saw, in 41 seconds. And that's why every detail of this Club World Cup is worth following. Because what we're seeing isn't just a tournament, it's a silent revolution unfolding before our eyes. As the world turns its eyes to the upcoming clash between Al-Hilal and Fluminense, behind the scenes at Manchester City, the atmosphere is one of tense silence. Not the calm, reflective kind, the kind that screams, the kind of silence that precedes deep changes. Because when a single defeat exposes so many flaws at once, something has to, and will, change. Inside the dressing room after the match, the City players wore the faces of men who couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Haaland, usually stoic and unshaken, walked straight through the mixed zone without acknowledging the journalists. Bernardo Silva, one of the most experienced, was one of the few who spoke. He said, "We didn't know how to kill the game when we had the chance." And maybe that sums it all up. City had control, had chances, but lacked hunger. And when there's no hunger, football punishes. Guardiola, on the other hand, didn't speak in a tone of regret. He spoke with a warning. Football is changing, and those who don't adapt will be left behind. He was direct, almost cutting. Between the lines, it was clear the manager will demand an immediate response. From the board, from the squad, and especially from himself. Because as much as the press want to point fingers, Guardiola remains obsessed with evolution. And no one knows better than him that the system needs tweaking. There are internal rumors that significant changes could occur as early as the next transfer window. Players like João Cancelo, who rediscovered his best form outside City, are unlikely to get another chance in Sky Blue. His relationship with Guardiola is over. Others, like Gvardiol and Matheus Nunes, both signed as potential stars, are also having their performances questioned. But perhaps the biggest concern isn't technical quality, it's emotional fatigue. Manchester City have won so much in recent years that, at some point, the collective subconscious of the squad stopped feeling the urgency. Winning became routine. And when winning becomes an obligation, the passion begins to fade. That's what Al-Hilal capitalized on. They weren't just tactically superior. They were more alive, more intense, more hungry. Meanwhile, across the ocean, a young Brazilian is living what might be the defining moment of his career. Marcos Leonardo, who left Santos under pressure, surrounded by criticism and doubt, is now transforming before our eyes into an international reference. His 2 goals against City weren't just decisive on the scoreboard. They were symbolic. They represent the triumph of the unlikely, the crowning of a boy who dared to dream when many didn't believe. And it wasn't just him. Renan Lodi, Malcolm, Bono, Koulibaly, Ruben Neves, all had monumental performances, but Marcos Leonardo etched his name in history with the greatest achievement. At 21, he becomes the symbol of a new generation of Brazilians reclaiming center stage on the global stage, even outside the traditional Europe-South America axis. And while Saudi Arabia pours billions into football as part of a global strategy, Brazil is still trying to assert itself. Fluminense is now the tip of the spear of a South American resistance that still believes in football played with soul, improvisation, and heart. The clash between Al-Hilal and Fluminense will be, in many ways, a battle between 2 distinct visions of modern football, the billion-pound machine versus the collective spirit. And the most curious thing is, if someone had said a few years ago that we'd be watching an international showdown between Marcos Leonardo and Germán Cano for a spot in the Club World Cup semifinal, we'd probably laugh. But now it's real, and it's spectacular. Meanwhile, the Premier League watches everything closely. City's early exit has already triggered alarms. Rivals like Arsenal and Liverpool sense a possible emotional instability in Guardiola's squad. And that kind of fragility in such a competitive league could be costly, especially considering that Pep doesn't handle prolonged losing spells well. Historically, he reacts with drastic changes. The question now is Guardiola's cycle at City coming to an end? It's too early to say for sure, but the signs are hard to ignore. His contract runs until 2025, but the wear is visible. Internally, there are voices suggesting it might be time for a new voice at the helm. And if that happens, the managerial market will go into overdrive. But before any drastic decision is made, City will have to respond on the pitch. And Guardiola knows he can no longer rely solely on possession and offensive volume. Global football now demands resilience, adaptability, and above all, humility. And maybe that's the greatest lesson Al-Hilal taught the footballing world. Never underestimate the opponent who plays with hunger. Meanwhile, Brazilian fans are preparing for a match that has already made history before even being played, because Fluminense versus Al-Hilal is more than just a quarter-final clash. It's a collision of worlds, of philosophies, of footballing schools. And it's also a chance to prove that Brazilian football, even without the same resources, still has the power to surprise. Fernando Diniz's preparation for this match has been intense. The coach knows Al-Hilal are dangerous, but he also knows unpredictability is his team's biggest weapon. With Cano in inspired form, Andre bossing the midfield, and Ganso dictating the tempo, Fluminense can make history. But they'll need to play with intelligence, discipline, and courage. And in this landscape where world football seems to turn upside down with each passing match, the fans are the real winners. Because there's no more room for monotony. The unpredictable has become the rule. And everyone, including Europe's biggest giants, is now in the line of fire. If you've made it this far, it's because you love football as much as we do. So you know what to do, right? Drop a like to support the channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any analysis, news, or twists in this historic Club World Cup. Here, you get everything. Straight to the point, engaging, and no waffle. Share this video with your football-loving friends and tell us in the comments who will come out on top, Fluminense or Al-Hilal. See you in the next video.